Right, for our next little trick, we're going to install this Axios, whatever its name is, but this one. So search for VueJS and Axios, and then just click the first one, and it will take you to the VueJS page here. Now, this is information, and you can go through this and read what they're actually doing. But if you just want to install it, you can just click up here, and this little green one at the top where it says Axios, and this should take you to a GitHub repository. And in here, if you scroll down a little bit more, we want to install it like this. So npm install Axios, that's all we want in this case. And if you go back to our Visual Studio Code, and right now I need another browser window another terminal to actually install it. So just click it, add one more. I'm in the right libraries to make sure you are this. You can just quickly check. All right, there we go. And here I want to install this. I'm just copy pasting npm install Axios and then doing this. Now you can also do this through your Vue UI if you want to, but the Axios is not in the plugins, it's actually in the dependencies, which is a mistake from the earlier videos I showed you. But if you want to do that, you have to go to the dependencies, or in Danish afhængigheder, I think it is for the Danish students. But if you just do this, then you have this. And a quick way to test if it's actually installed is just by clicking in your, if you have your project open here on your left side, there's a file called package.json. If you click this and you see this in your dependencies, sorry, and it says Axios, then it means it's installed. And if it's higher or equals to 0.18, then woo, everything should be working, right? Let's just remove this. So right now we have our Axios installed, our plugin installed, and what we want to do now is we want to use this. Now we can follow the online tutorial about what we need to do and everything, but I'm just going to tell you what you need to do. First things first, if we want to use the Axios, we need to import it like we would with a component. So inside our export default up here, we're going to import, and what we want to import is Axios, right? And we just do a, whoops, not like this, but from, and then Axios in here. And this is looking a little strange to me. That's because I'm doing it in the wrong place. It's actually before the script, not inside the default, my bad. So put it just after the opening tag for the script, and then it looks like this. This is now importing Axios into our home.view component. Remember, it's into this component here. If you want to import it into everything, put it into your main here. But we're just using it right now here, so let's keep it like this. Cool, that's the first thing we want to do. Now, we want to grab our data from our database up here, so basically this one, which is being converted into this one. So we want to grab the information from localhost colon 8888 port and the name of the folder, and if we open this folder we get this JSON here, right? So we're just going to copy this for now because we need the URL for this. I'll make sure I did it right. Whoop. And then in our browser we are going to set up a few things. First things, if you don't have your data object, create it. Make sure you have a return in here as well. But in here we want to create somewhere to store the data once it's actually being grabbed by us. So we're going to create a variable called countries. Am I spelling that correctly? Yes, I am. And this is going to be an array. We can also create an object. Let's do that. So we have an object here that's ready for usage, right? So we can store different information that we're doing in here. Now, this is where we would create it in the previous one. We had our products and then in here. But right now we want to grab information from a database online, or in our case, local database instead, right? So down here we're going to create, sorry, we're going to use some of the lifecycle hooks in Vue. And the one we're going to use is created. So before everything is actually being printed, we're going to grab the information here, and we're going to use the Axios here, Axios. So this is an HTTP request, so we're asking for something that's online. That's what Axios does. The previous version would be the Vue resource, but that's kind of being deprecated. So they're trying to make everyone use this instead. So we are, of course, and then we want to use the get method here. This means we're saying, well, where do you want to get it? So what we need to do is create these two, kind of just zoom a little bit, there we go. what we need to do is we need to, let's make this a little bit smaller. In between these two, what I call quotations here, we're just gonna punch in the link I just copied from our browser here, right? So this is actually where we want to grab our information from. The next thing we want to do is we actually want to use something from ECMAScript 6 called a promise. So that's going to do with then. This is kind of like it's evaluating if something is happening, then you do this, and if it's not happening, then you do something else. So kind of like an if statement, right? It's called then, and inside this we're going to use two parentheses like this. I'm just gonna switch lines, so maybe it'll be easier for you to see. But we use dot then, that means straight after this, I just switch line. Go back if you didn't see what I saw. And in here, we're just gonna call something. This is just a variable where we're storing the data. I'm just gonna call this response. You can call it data or cheese or whatever you want. Doesn't really matter, just as long as you remember this name and reuse it later on. So we're storing information here, and then we're using a fat arrow notation from JavaScript. And inside this, we have our function with the fat arrow notation. And in here, we're going to grab this information that we get from our link over here. You can see the page here. From here, we're going to grab all this information, and then we're going to store it in our countries up here. And we're going to be using this keyword for this. So grabbing this and the country, which is our array up here, not our array, our object up here. And then we're setting this equal to the data we just grabbed. So response.data. Now the reason why we do this is response, that's the data we're grabbing, and the data is actually the body of the JSON. So this is why we do this. We can see this in console log. But that's the first part of it, our promise here. We also want to add something called a catch, like this. And that's this, and I'm just going to add a new line for this as well, so we have it in the same way. And inside this catch, we're just going to write error and use a fat arrow notation as well. And similar to before, we open our function here and close it, and then blah, 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 and so on and so on. And if something goes wrong, we're just going to print out the error. So, whoops, do this inside the parentheses. So basically, this is just evaluating if this is happening, it's true, then woohoo! Do this, and if something goes wrong here, you're going to print out the error for me. So it's basically just for something to help us. Now, this is now set up. This is now grabbing the data with Axios with the HTTP request. And what we want to do is we also want to print it out. So we'll do that in the next video. I'll show you this because we need to add a little bit more. All right, see you in the next video.